All right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Saturday morning with your pal and mine. It is the one and only Gundacker. Get ready to break down some NBA in 50 minutes. That is 50 minutes. We will be making way for the college football live before lock. We have a 5-game slate tonight. Not a ton of injury news just yet, but things always get squirrely on a Saturday. What do we got going on today, Gundacker?
Yeah, man. 5-game slate, late lock should be much more easy to keep an eye on, right? Not overwhelming like some of these monster slates. So hopefully nothing too squirrely happens, but I do appreciate having an easy night to like a 5-game late lock slate. Give me a little extra time to prepare. So nothing too big. Last night was good. Hopefully tonight is better.
Yeah, reminder to everybody tonight. I believe we fall back tonight. I've thought that the last 2 weekends, but I think it's officially tonight. So if you're up at 2 a.m., it's going to be 2 a.m. again. So enjoy that one, but we'll have plenty of time to get ready for tomorrow's NFL slate. Today, after us, of course, I mentioned at 11 o'clock, probably at 11 o'clock, we do have the college football live before lock show. At 12, we have the NFL tournament strategy show that is going to be with Greg and Neil Rich Guy Orfold. And then at 2:30, we've got the Prize Picks show. That's going to be myself and Aton breaking down some Prize Picks looks for you. At 4:30, we've got MMA live before lock there. Finally, back to a 6 o'clock Eastern time lock. Tonight, they have a pretty big card tonight. A lot of interesting choices there. A lot of fights that should be garnering some viewership. And then NBA Deeper Dive at 5:30 and 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We have a special extra half hour. NBA Lock tonight is at 7:30. We're going till 8 to get you guys ready to go. And then tomorrow we start at 9 a.m. We've got dueling shows. We've got the NFL strategy show that is with Adam and Josh, and then at the same time we'll have on the Awesemo Odds YouTube channel, we'll have Ben Rossa breaking down some NFL bets. So we've got you covered. Simulcasting now because we just can't get enough out on one platform. Let's look at our games here today, Gundacker. We've got 5 of them. Some free content for people to watch for the NFL player ownership. The NHL top stacks. I had a great night in NHL last night. Did you see that Connor McDavid goal? If you looked at Twitter, you will. It's impressive. He literally, like a little kid going, like a grown-up playing against little kid soccer. He went through the entire team with the puck and was just like bouncing it from one side to the other, and then deked the goalie, deked the defenseman, split 2 forwards to start it all off. It was pretty amazing. You'll have to check that out. But free NHL top stacks tool, the NHL strategy shows in the can already on the YouTube channel. They were on before us. You get free the DFS building blocks article that is posted right now. You're going to get free the optimal lineups pick article from Team McBee that'll come out this afternoon. You're going to get NBA projections. Those are free today, as are the UFC pro plays. So for those of you that aren't behind the paywall, 1, what are you waiting for? And 2, if you think this is good, all the stuff we're putting forward, but you got to wait like once a week or every 5 days to see the different tools. You can get those all at once if you jump on here behind the premium paywall. We'll talk about ways to do that. Gundacker, let's get our first game of the night underway here. We have Utah 2.5-point favorites at Miami, 213 implied point total here. We have Donovan Mitchell questionable with an ankle, Royce O'Neal questionable, wait for it, with an ankle, Kyle Lowry ankle, and Okpala also with an ankle. What do you want to do in our first game here? Nice battle of some rebounding big men between Bam Adebayo and league leader Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, we got a clash of 2 of the best defenses in the league going at it here. Donovan Mitchell, his stats would absolutely be a slate shaker, as we saw in that Atlanta Hawks slate. Even with the slow start, they all kind of got there. His 20 to 30 shot attempts get distributed around him. So you do have to kind of wrestle with the possibility of playing the Jazz without Mitchell in an uncomfortable spot against the Heat. The Heat have just been suffocating opponents. So on the surface, if Mitchell was in, there's not a lot that I'm excited about. in terms of upside, every now and then these two, you get two good defenses go at it, and you just get stunned for DFS and goes down to the wire. So maybe I'll have to be a little bit more open-minded to get into this game. I think the forefront guys I would target for upsides probably like Jimmy Butler. Adebayo versus Gobert is gonna be almost must-watch TV for nerds who like defense. But I think if Mitchell's out, you look at Conley, you look at Joe Ingles, you look at Jordan Clarkson, and if Mitchell's in, I probably want to make this one of my lower priority games just because of how defensive centric it should be. But that's a 5-game slate. We might be able to lower our ROI expectation for some of these salary points. So Mitchell's the big part here for me.
So that you bring up a good point here, where this is a little bit more of a defensive game. We're seeing this across the league. There's a couple reasons here. So overall possessions are down, and that's because they're not getting to the foul line as many times. So basically what that does is it stops the clock, and then it gives the other team a possession as soon as it's over. So in addition to, yes, teams are playing faster and are moving up and down the floor more frequently, along with taking shot attempts closer earlier in the shot clock. It's also the free throws that make the games seem like they're of a faster pace. So that's something to keep in mind. Overall scoring, I was reading an article, so I'm just going by memory here. I think it's down like about 3.7 points per game compared to what it was last year. So not totally out of the realm of inconsistency or variance, but we know that that field goal attempts are probably that free throw attempts are down in general as well. Games are being finished more quickly from a clock standpoint, from an actual chronological standpoint there. So it's kind of interesting to see how things shake out. The other oddity that we've seen, so even though scoring is down, a handful of points per game, let's call it 1 bucket per team per game, what's happening to the scores? It's hard to crack 300 on DK. It's almost impossible on Yahoo. FanDuel, it's a little bit, just a tiny bit different. Their pricing is a little bit softer, but I don't even think it's soft pricing. We're just not seeing many of these eye-popping scores. Do you think that, it's like a different strategy? Like last night I played like just shy of 100 teams on DK. I had one go above 300 points. It had like 311, finished 4th in a contest out of 3,000 people. I was the 4th highest score, and I was one of 4 people that broke 300. The next person closest to me was like 8 points back. What the hell's going on, Gundacker?
Yeah, I actually noticed that. I ran 50 in the 100K to first on FanDuel, and for the longest, first place was 350, and like second and beyond was like 330, 332. So I don't know if it's the perfect combination of lower scoring basketball, foul trouble last night, some chalky spots, and there was a bunch of blowouts. I got stuck
those last few games. Golden State, I looked at them like they've got the reserves.
Yeah, that hurt me because I had a couple lineups that were live if we had a fourth quarter.
And when you wake up and look at your phone, you're like, Gary Payton. Wait, what?
The glove has a junior. But yeah, I don't know if we'll see some progression. Obviously, there's some poster boys for this, like Damian Lillard, right? We got the 10K Dame in mind, and now we're getting him at 8K, and he's still kind of underwhelming. So I think it's a perfect mix of all of those. And we've also seen the sites start to have more efficient pricing, right? We were not getting the severely underpriced rookies. Yeah. So I think it's a perfect mix of all that. I do think we'll get back to some of the 400-point slates on the big slates, but hopefully a slate like tonight will be a little bit more modest. Back in our day, EMac, 300 points used to mean something.
Oh, yeah.
and
hey, it used to be a 40 was a great score for a player. Once upon a time. Not so much anymore. Not so much. That was when steals were worth like 1.2 instead of 3. But we digress. All right, on to the next one. This one's a little more exciting than the Utah Miami, but with only 10 teams in our player pool, it's hard to cross anybody off completely. We've got Philadelphia going into Chicago. This is a reprisal of the game, 100 hours ago or whatever it was. So out, of course, is Ben Simmons dealing with his contract issue. Looks like Philadelphia has begun fining him again for missed games. So that's going to end poorly. We have Harris, Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, and Isaiah Joe are all out. They're in the health and safety protocol. We have starters or spot starter. Furkan Korkmaz is dealing with the sore wrist. He is questionable. And Danny Green is dealing with a hamstring injury. He is also questionable. Joel Embiid, not on the injury report, but we know that kind of doesn't matter. He's just going to be dealing with a sore knee throughout the year. In the event he were to be out for whatever reason, obviously race to get Andre Drummond in your lineup. Otherwise, we have some question marks here, sort of depending on who ends up starting or whomever is in. So Shake Milton got a spot start in the last game. He no longer has that soft 20 to 22 minute cap on his minutes. He played 34 as a starter in the last game. So he should be a priority if he's starting again, which likely he will for one of those two other players. Georges Yang continues to come off the bench, knocking down threes like they're going out of style. Not that far off his career average. He's just basically doubled his volume. So that's the big difference maker there. And I think I haven't looked at it this morning, but I think he's back just a tick below 40%, I think, on the season. So while it's good, it's not quite the eye-popping numbers they were before, but it's absolutely sustainable. He's also chipping in with some rebounds. And he's just 11 on our sponsor Yahoo tonight. And then you've got Seth Curry and Tyrese Maxey. They get a boost if one of or both of Korkmaz and Green are out tonight, just because it will open up additional shots. Otherwise, those guys are kind of appropriately priced because we've been missing Tobias Harris long enough and Ben Simmons long enough. Their roles have sort of been established. We know where they are. Now we need hot shooting from them to kind of get them over the hump. But if anybody's out, all of a sudden we've got another dozen shots that are going to be dispersed across the rest of the rotation. Start us off with Joel Embiid. I broke down the also rans. What are you doing with Embiid? Do we trust him? Is he going to play more than 34 minutes? What's going on here, Gundacker?
Yeah, I mean, Embiid's right there with Lillard, where we have these high expectations. If by hook or by crook, he's just not getting there. I'm willing to continue to believe in Embiid. I feel like my Embiid bandwagon's starting to run out of people on it. But man, you just look at how depleted the Sixers are. And you got to think that, hey, if they're going to compete for 30, 34 minutes, Embiid's got to be 1.3, 1.5, maybe even greater fantasy point per minute with extremely high usage. One of the things that slipped in last night, EMac, was Matisse Thybulle had entered health protocols and was listed out. That's on top of, Tobias Harris, maybe Danny Green misses again. Thybulle had been playing 30 plus minutes his last two games. There's even more potential opportunity there for Gorgeous Niang, who has been corrected price point, but under 5K. If we did get a Danny Green out again, he could still kind of serve a role at that price point on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So something to look out for. I don't know how teams seem to have staggered protocols like that. You feel like it would be all at once, but that hasn't been the case here. Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, and you mentioned Shake Milton. Not only did Shake Milton draw the start last game, but Doc said Shake's no longer on a minutes restriction. And that was huge because going from 20 minutes to mid 30s, we know he can be a per minute production. I feel like if he's having his ceiling game and Maxey or Curry having a decent game, maybe I'm not getting that ceiling game out of Embiid, especially against a tougher on paper spot like the Chicago Bulls. But I do think there's a lot of meat on the bone at on Shake Milton's price point. So Milton's somebody I'm going to probably be pretty bullish on if the right pieces of news fall.
All right. We have in chat, Ryan Nelson says a presidential candidate and a comedian on the stream today. Where is Alex finding this high priced talent? Yeah, maybe we need Ryan Nelson to negotiate our contract rates. That would be helpful for us. This is a labor of love. It's a labor of love here. So on the Bulls side of things, you mentioned their defense. It has been absolutely crazy how good they have been considering their move. Nikolai Vucevic, never known for his defense. Zach LaVine, never really known for his defense. They are added Alex Caruso, who solid defender, but not exactly a lockdown guy. He's coming off the bench, helping them out. They've got, I guess maybe not having Kobe White available is helping by default just a little bit there. And then DeMar DeRozan in the mix as well. So they've sort of taken the, we're playing as a team. It's nobody's bigger or better or above the team, and they're buying into some defense. It's paying dividends just now. There's a couple good articles on under the ESPN Insider or whatever they're calling their behind the paywall content. There was one breaking down, is the Chicago Bulls defense sustainable? That was kind of interesting. And then there was another one talking about Damian Lillard, how he's currently in the third worst 8-game shooting stretch of his career. And they're just sort of talking about advanced stats and different metrics and things like that. So those are kind of fascinating reads. Cutting to the chase, it's a we'll see approach. Dame shouldn't be this bad. Could he be harboring some sort of injury potentially? The Bulls, they'll come back to earth a little bit, but it does seem like it's potentially sustainable with the team system. Now, what happens as soon as the other teams start to see a lot of what they're doing? They're going to find the weaknesses or figure out where the easier shots will be made, and they'll have to make adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. That's basketball for you, but it is kind of interesting to see where they are now. The Bulls, the only player that really actually did jump for me, and most of my early morning analysis was on Yahoo, since they are our presenting sponsor, but Alex Caruso coming in at $13 is a nice option. He generally, in the closer games, he gets a lot more of the high leverage minutes. He is typically, though not always, a part of the closing unit, one, because he helps space the floor because he can handle the ball and shoot, and he plays pretty decent perimeter defense. So that's something that you really want to see with your closing unit. So that's the one guy I really like. I can't get a good feel for any of these other options. There's always the fun of Vucevic always plays well against Philadelphia. They were the team that drafted him like 12 years ago or whatever it was. Don't let that guide your decision. He's a solid play. Everybody's kind of solid play, no spectacular plays. What are you thinking here for Chicago?
Yeah, so I feel like this entire slate feels that way, right? We're thinking about a Phoenix game, a Boston game, Miami, Utah. So there's not going to be like clicks that we typically get energized to play. If we continue this trend of, maybe closer to 5X and 7X is something I can live with. I'm in agreement with you. The Bulls are so balanced that it's hard to really gravitate towards one guy with a high level of confidence. But DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine have really been the bulk of the scoring for the Bulls, and we've seen them coincide 25 plus real points. One of my friends hit me up the other day with a same game parlay, and it had DeRozan and LaVine over 25. I was like, that's a little weird to lean on, bro. And and sure enough, I mean, they smoked it. DeRozan's 3 games in a row of 30 real points. Power forward DeMar DeRozan is getting it done. So DeRozan would be one of the first names I look at. And Matisse Thybulle, we don't give him a lot of love because he's not really an offensive player. We don't think about him for fantasy, but he is their best defender. And you take out Matisse Thybulle and a team that's already, without Ben Simmons and Toby and maybe Danny Green, definitely have some offensive hopes for the Bulls, and DeRozan would probably float towards the front end of my list here. And then, like I said, Zach LaVine's another guy that has been putting up 20 plus real points in just about every game. So those are probably the first 2 Bulls I look at, LaVine and DeRozan. And then on FanDuel, we continue to get 6-ish K Lonzo Ball, and I do think that he just stuffs the stat sheet enough that I'll never not have a guy like Lonzo Ball. He's averaging over 3 stocks a game, 1.1 blocks per game, 2 steals a game. So I think the Bulls they can all serve a purpose here. Vucevic might actually be my least favorite just because of potential clash with Embiid. If Embiid, for whatever reason, didn't play, then, like you said, lock in and Drummond, and then I'm opening up all the Bulls. But if I had to tier them or rank them, it'd probably be DeRozan 1, LaVine 2, and then on FanDuel, give me some Lonzo.
All right, we are going to continue on here. We've got some fun games here with Boston and Dallas. Of course, we've got some other good stuff. Mentioned all the shows we have coming up. Mentioned getting behind the paywall. You want to get behind the paywall, just NBA player? No problem. We have the NBA Express Pass. It's $3.95 a week. There is no promo code. That is our go forward rate. Has everything we have to offer for showdown and single game contests. So if you're on a budget, definitely the way to try things out there for the NBA Express. You do get the NBA playership, the player and rostership rankings. It's not the actual raw ones, but it's directionally correct. All you really need to know on those is who's the top 10, top 20% of the field. That's going to help you for popping in here and making a couple casual lineups as you get home from work and need to have something to unwind with after you get the kids to bed. So definitely it's a fun way to come in. If you're not going to be an everyday player, you can get that. We also have that same package, $3.95 a week. That is for the NFL Express package. That it covers all of our showdown content. So you get Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday night football. You also get DraftKings tiers, projections, as well as access to the lineup builder and a variety of other tools. So that's a lot of fun to check out on that front. Speaking of other fronts, let's go into Dallas. We are going to be without Jaylen Brown for Boston as they head in to take on the Mavericks. Mavericks will be without Maxi Kleber. We have Kristaps Porzingis, who has missed over a week now with the back issue. And wait for it, would it shock you to find out that Richardson's questionable with a bruised foot? That poor guy is dinged up no matter what team he is playing for. What are you thinking on this one? We've seen some nice games recently from Jalen Brunson. His price has come up. We have Jason Tatum literally has forgotten how to shoot or is in the worst slump of his career. Here's some interesting numbers for him. So in each of his first 4 seasons, Tatum has shot at least 45% or better from the field. This year, he is at 37.3. That is a significant decrease. That's almost relative 20%. That is just massive when you think about it that way, that he is missing 1 out of 5 shots that he used to make. He is through his first 4 games, he was averaging 10.5 3-point attempts per game. He was making a third of them, which is pretty solid. He had a 47.2% success rate from the field overall. Now, he's not shooting threes. He's down to half that, just over 5 a game. He's only shooting 18%. And then overall from his field goals, he's at 32%. He's 23 years old. We cannot write him off right now. We're not getting much of a discount on DraftKings and FanDuel, where he's in the upper 9s. However, he is 41 on Yahoo. That is really intriguing to me. Do you think this is just variance for Tatum? Because he doesn't really seem to have an injury, doesn't really seem to have any other issues there. It just seems like bad luck for him.
Poor shooting. This is what Marcus Smart talked about. Taking the shots, but he's not making them. But you take out Jaylen Brown from the mix, man.
I'm still waiting for them to have a players only meeting. That's when we know they're going to turn it around, right?
They did before the Magic game, and they.
Oh no!
Yeah, and they.
It hasn't worked. They need another one.
I think they're undefeated since it, right? Didn't they kind of shocked the Heat. They beat the Magic. You're supposed to beat the Magic. I got to get to Tatum. I think Tatum without Jaylen Brown, and even going back to the beginning of last year, you plugged Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier from the mix. Tatum is averaging over 1.3 DraftKings points per minute in this scenario, 1.28 on FanDuel, 35% usage rate. Now those numbers might come down. Dennis Schroeder in the mix could pull away, but it's still going to be a high 20s to even 30 plus usage rate. So that's just too much on a slate like this. Going against a team like the Mavericks, who have not been defensive stalwarts, especially without Kleber, without Porzingis. So I will be bullish on Jason Tatum because I can get to one of the bigger minute projections on the slate, and I'm fully expecting 20 to 30 real points with some peripherals here. So Tatum should be stud here. Now, looking at the early ownership projections, Tatum's only falling to about 22% on a 5-game slate. That seems really low for me. So I do like that number, especially when you put it in context for some of these other guys. Kind of feels Jazzy versus Hawks without Donovan Mitchell for me. I could stack the Celtics and feel like it makes sense on this slate. Dennis Schroeder should be a core piece here. Marcus Smart is in the conversation, but give me Tatum, give me Schroeder, and then Al Horford has been rejuvenated. The blocks he's throwing up per game, the fantasy points that he's putting up per game, if you can get him over 30 minutes, there's a real shot at 40 plus fantasy points. Like I said, Miami's a tough defense, and it was a blowout, so I'm not going to overreact to night 2 of a back-to-back against Miami with some lower fantasy numbers, but I think the Celtics come in stackable, and I'm usually a guy that doesn't do that with the Celtics, but Jaylen Brown represents a lot of usage to replace, a lot of real points to replace, and a lot of minutes to replace. So give me the Celtics. On the Mavs side, if Porzingis doesn't play or does play, but really, if he doesn't play, Jalen Brunson is somebody that I've been aggressively playing, and it has been rewarding so far. And we've seen them in lineups without Porzingis push Dorian Finney-Smith to the 4, insert Jalen Brunson to the starting lineup, and then give him a ton of minutes. And he is a firecracker. So somebody to keep an eye on if the Porzingis news goes our way. If Porzingis is in, 7K on FanDuel, 7,500 on FanDuel, looking for 40 plus fantasy points. It's viable, it's doable, but nothing I'm warm and fuzzy about. And then Luka Doncic comes in as one of the studs of the slate. I think a lot of that 10K money will probably end up in the hands of Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis, foreshadowing the fact that LeBron's slated to miss some time, but Luka still comes in at 25% owned, actually above some of those guys. So that's a top 4 ownership right now. I guess do with that as you may, right? I feel like in tournaments, I'd want the lower end of the Doncic versus the Lakers spectrum. So I'm fine with Luka. Has the ability to be the highest fantasy point scorer on the slate, but I guess in my own builds with that information, I might rather go Westbrook and get the zeros going at it with Lillard and Westy. So if Porzingis was in, all it would do basically is get me a little bit away from Brunson, but I like the Celtics stack pretty bullishly.
What do you think about some of those villains from John Wick movies? How do you think they do on a basketball court?
Okay, what a crazy question.
Boban? He was in a John Wick.
All right.
I killed with a book in a library.
I knew that he was in.
We're obligated to talk about Boban. It's a Saturday. It's a DFS thing. Even though he's getting up there in age, we got to mention the Boban.
Believe it or not, I have not seen John Wick. The only reason I'm somewhat familiar with what John Wick is because of Fortnite. So weird. They have a skin in Fortnite, 2 of them actually. Boban, not really a guy I would justify. I guess if the Celtics remained big in the front court with Horford, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, guys like that, maybe there's a world where in a depleted front court without Porzingis and without Kleber, Boban would sneak in for some minutes. We saw 15 against San Antonio. Night 2 of a back-to-back, but night 1, Kid only threw him 2. So it's going to be a very volatile click if you want to get there.
And for those of you that realize today we're offering free NBA player projections, you will see that Awesemo is projecting him for 1.2 fantasy points. But I'm preemptively bringing him up because it seems like whenever we don't talk about him, that's when he pops off for his 17 points, 8 boards in 12 minutes. So I'm just throwing it out there right now. So the interesting thing here, I'm looking at, now I'm stuck in trying to remember where Taco Fall is playing these days. I don't think he's playing for any team right now. Because
I want to say like the Cavs or something.
You're right. It is Cleveland. He has appeared in 1 game for 2 minutes. I was looking here at Al Horford's numbers compared to the last 4 or 5 years. The only thing this year that's really different is blocks. because he's playing 30 minutes per game. He's taken 11 field goal attempts. These are all within his last 7-year totals. They're not even at the top. He's shooting 43.5%. He's taking 4.7 threes. That's less than what he did the last 2 years averaged together. He is making his field goals a little bit better from 2. His effective field goal percentage is still down. His free throws are up. So he's making 2 free throws per game where normally he makes 1. He's getting 3 rebounds per game, more than what he typically has been getting. And then he is also getting 2 blocks per game more than what he has typically been getting. So while not unsustainable, it's also in some of those variant categories. I still think he's an intriguing option. We want to remember that basically he sat for the better part of, I guess, almost the last 2 years, if you want to look at it that way. He played just 67 games for Philadelphia 2 seasons ago, and then just 28 last year for the Thunder. So for a guy that had a lot of mileage, a little bit of a respite, a little bit of a chance for him to get healthy. He's 35. This is year 15 for him in the league. Do I think he keeps this up once we get to Thanksgiving? No, I most certainly do not. But can he do it tonight? I don't see why he can't at least flirt with something in the 30 fantasy point range. I think that's a realistic outcome. We have just 10 teams in our player pool, and we're already iffy on, do we want to play people from Utah and Miami? We'll know more when we get the injury news there from Utah, but we're running out of spots here. So I do think Horford's in play. Whereas if this was last night, no, he wouldn't even be in my player pool. But right now I'm looking at him like, well, 20%, wouldn't hurt myself with it. It's a weird sport, this NBA DFS, Gundacker.
Yeah, and before last night, the Mavericks allowed the 4th most blocks per game.
Oh, all right. Do we have the block detector? What's the opposite of the basketball version of the bomb detector?
I don't have anything crazy for
the
that.
Hustle board. I want you to put together the hustle board. It's going to be the stocks. It's going to be steals and blocks. Maybe we'll factor in rebounds. You'll do all the heavy lifting with your API work. Maybe you'll factor in rebounds, and we'll create a hustle metric here. I like this. We'll invent something new, Gundacker. All right. We are 18 minutes to go. We got 2 games left here. I think we kind of hit that one on both sides. Atlanta at Phoenix is kind of an interesting one. We'll talk a little bit about Odd Shopper. We'll throw you some Yahoo information. Of course, we've got a new Awesemo Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that as well. Tonight for Atlanta, they have John Collins questionable with a sore foot. You have Cameron Payne dealing with an ankle issue. He has missed some time, but he may play tonight. We always want to keep an eye on Phoenix. When are they playing next? How are they going to get some potential in-game rest there for Chris Paul? Tonight, they play, and then they don't play again until Monday in Sacramento. Then they're back home for a game, and then they go on a 3-game road trip with basically a day of rest in between each of those. So nothing too crazy tonight that would make us think that we're going to see some serious in-game rest for Chris Paul. Plus, it all has to play out appropriately. And then the final thing with Paul, what he's been doing a lot of games that were semi in hand, he's just still out there. He's just distributing. He doesn't go into the paint, but he just brings the ball up, passes it to some people, and he's still out there. So he hooked us up last game with his 2nd straight 50-plus fantasy point game. That was on the strength of 7 combined blocks and steals, 5 steals, 2 blocks. That's not going to happen with great regularity there. However, he should be basically flirting with a double-double at any point in time, and he has a relatively safe baseline at around 30 points. That said, tonight, I actually like Booker a little bit more. Paul's $3 more on Yahoo at 35. Booker, if I'm going off memory, is 32. You can play both of them in the same lineup. You can throw in somebody from Atlanta, get a little bit of a synergistic stack there. That'll work on the main slate. That'll work on the 2-game late slate. But I like the Phoenix backcourt tonight. Not really anybody else for Phoenix popping for me. What are you liking here from the home team? Are you perfectly comfortable with either of the guards? Do you have a lean on one? How do you feel about Ayton going against Capella? Take it away, Gundacker.
Ayton feels too cheap still, 6,500. I only need 30 plus to feel like I'm getting an okay deal on this size slate. And I know 40 plus fantasy points is still there for him. Yeah, Capella's a traditional center, and he's going to be a guy you have to fight for rebounds with. But I think Ayton can can move a little bit more laterally around him, and the shot volume for Ayton has been fine. 10 plus is usually the expectation. So give me Ayton points per dollar on DraftKings, at least $1,300 more on FanDuel. Chris Paul versus Devin Booker. I think they're guys I never feel comfortable playing together. We have seen them coexist at times. Paul will give you probably a higher floor because of his propensity to give you those peripherals, the double-digit assists, and maybe to the double-digit shot attempts, but right barely there, while Booker's the guy that they could lean on a little bit more for true points, 20-plus real points. And we've actually seen his rebounds and assists kind of rise as well, and maybe his floor is a little bit better than the perception historically. He's giving you 40-plus DraftKings fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, but it is a very easy street of matchups: Houston, Pelicans, Cleveland, Sacramento. I think Atlanta can at least be a little bit tougher of a spot versus some of those guys, a little bit more average or above average defensive efficiency versus some of those previous teams I mentioned. But on this side slate, 5-game slate, I might just end up correlating lineups and get into some stacks. And yeah, you can give me Paul, Booker, and Ayton. And if I put them all together, probably looking for maybe 140 to 150 fantasy points. I think that's viable on DK. So I don't mind that. I think Crowder to Bridges, guys like that, I don't tend to gravitate towards to a bunch, but at 5,400, we have not really talked about much at that price range. And if you think 25 to 30 is at least a range of outcome for Mikal Bridges, I think in 50-plus lineups, even in 20, if you really need to pinch some pennies, you can make a case that minutes for Bridges could kind of get you there. But it wouldn't be a comfortable click. Same with Jay Crowder. Those are guys that are a little bit more fringy because of their super volatile floors. On the Hawks side, Trae Young is 8,500 on FanDuel, 97 on DK, and on both sites, you can pretty much get to a pivot that's not that far. I guess on DK it's a little bit harder to like Lillard over Trae Young, but on FanDuel at that price range, 8K-ish, I think Lillard might win the battle. So maybe Trae Young becomes a little bit of a contrarian pay up option at the point guard spot. My knee-jerk reaction is to go at some of these other point guard spots, but we've definitely seen 40 to 50 fantasy points coming out of Trae Young. And a tough matchup going into Phoenix, but 48 against Brooklyn, 44 mid-40s. So I'm leaning towards going elsewhere, but I still think Trae Young does have an errant 50 fantasy point potential game. The front court for the Hawks here: John Collins, Clint Capella. Nothing that I'm too excited to get to. I still think the price points on Collins and Capella for FanDuel, 6'8" and 6'4". There's still some meat on the bone there. I'm a little bit more leaning towards a guy like John Collins, but overall, I still respect the Suns defensively. I like them at the house. 223 is a modest total, but in context of this slate, like, it's par for the course. So this is a great microcosm of guys we probably wouldn't play last night because of the prices in the matchup, but tonight we might have to I won't say overvalue, but we might have to heighten our value on some of these more median outcomes here. And I think I'm more on the Sun side here, but you can get to me on some Collins and maybe some Trae Young on FanDuel at 8,500.
All right, we're going to talk about Odd Shopper here in just a sec, but I want to give a shout out to Dave DeReamer there in chat. He's saying hi to us. He likes your Yankees gear. We got Ankur there. He says, good morning. A little EMac 2020. Always fun seeing our regulars there. If you guys have not yet hit the like button, please do. It helps us battle that pesky YouTube algorithm and gets us more views, which in turn allows us to bring more free shows for all of you. And we now have 3 Awesemo YouTube channels. We've got the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel that will be going. We've got some shows on there and a lot of season-long content. They're also going to do a start-sit show, which they do every day, competing with our own 4-hour block on this channel, leading you up to NFL kickoff, breaking down nothing but 4 hours of NFL DFS. And then we also have the Awesemo odds channel, which is where you can get the NFL odds show that will be going first thing tomorrow morning. Again, you hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll know every time we go live, and we are putting out a ton of shows. We're putting out over 10 hours of content a day. That doesn't even count all the videos on demand that we have. So definitely check that out. But please do hit that like button. Dropping this link into chat here. We have Odd Shopper. This is a way to organize your sports wagering. It's very helpful. You don't have to dig through a bunch of stuff. So what I've done is I've dropped in the link where it'll take you guys right to the shop NBA bets. You can choose what state you are in, and it will show you all the available sports wagering sites there. We know that there are several fantasy sites out there that do player prop contests, so this is also something helpful. You can determine if their lines are sharp or not. But I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to Shop NBA. I'm going to sort largest or expected ROI, largest to smallest. We have Chris Paul tonight. He has an over-under of 10.5 assists, Gundacker. We know that he leads the league with 12 assists per game. If we look at this, Awesemo's done the heavy lifting. Awesemo's projections from the DFS projections say he's going to get on a median outcome of 11.8 assists tonight. That brings in a 39% ROI on an expected win of 65%. So we're saying 2 out of 3 times he is going to top that 10.5. Well, why isn't it a 65% ROI? Well, you're paying the VIG or whatever you have to get for the plus minus. In this case, FanDuel has the best bet, and we're actually betting 100 to get 116. So you will want to look at that. That one's slightly in our favor. If they start to get a lot of action on one side, they'll probably lower that. It'll get closer to 100 or minus 105. But I think that 10.5 number is probably going to stick around there today. But that's a good way to quickly check and see what is out there for the Awesemo odds. It's just free. We do this for NFL. We do it for NBA. Those are the main sports out there, but we also have, of course, NCAA football also has this particular feature. So definitely check that out. It's a quick way to help augment your DFS income if you are in a state where you are able to do the sports wagering. And then also, if you go through the links of any of the wagering sites off of our page, it'll automatically attach you. 1, it'll give you our referral code, but 2, it'll attach you with whatever their best deal is at the current time. Because I can guarantee you, if you're like me and you live in Virginia, the bet 1 to win 100 on DK, not the best offer DK has out there. That's the one they want you to sign up with. Come in on our link. You'll get a better offer on that. All right, Gundacker, if you were choosing over under 10.5 assists, which way would you land? I got to go with the over. Who wants to root for the under besides Ben Ross?
Yeah, I don't like to bet that high of a total, but I guess for Chris Paul in a tight game, it probably would be the over. But normally, I wouldn't touch lines that high.
All right, but it's the league leader. Come on, we've got this. What can we? The pink slips, heads up for roll, the mortgage, bet the house, bet the farm. All right, let's get to our last game here. So we have some questions because hey. It's the Lakers. They're going to be the last game of the night. LeBron James out for probably a week with his abdominal injury. Anthony Davis questionable. Why? Because it's a day ending in Y. Actually, he has a sprained thumb. It's his right thumb on his shooting hand. We'll have to see what happens. But I would think the steely gaze of LeBron James is going to will Anthony Davis to be on the court because the Lakers are just 5-4 right now, and they need to stop screwing around. They need to bank some wins. This is an eminently winnable game tonight, even though they're underdogs by about 4 points. Portland is the only team on a back-to-back. They beat the Pacers last night 110-106, I believe, or 111-106. You had Lillard and McCollum both played over 38 minutes. I believe it was McCollum that touched 40 minutes. And then you've got Yusuf Nurkic, has a sort of soft cap of around. He hasn't gone really more than 28 minutes. New coach Chauncey Billups kind of keeping him around 23 to 24 minutes per game. That's a little bit concerning if you're looking to roll out Nurkic there. What are you liking from this one? Obviously, Russell Westbrook priced up for the usage he should be seeing tonight, but we're going to like him I like Anthony Davis over there on Yahoo. Keep your options open because the game starts a half hour later than the other 10 o'clock game. So if for whatever reason we need to go away from Davis, you can always move over to Westbrook, but you need to have the correct position eligibility or 2v2 left available. We got 6 minutes here. Gundacker, what do you want to do with this last game?
So on FanDuel, Russell Westbrook's almost a core for me. Probably a core for me. 9,600. Try a little too cheap. Median expectation for me is going to be 50 plus fantasy points. You give me that all day long, all day strong. 10.9K. Yeah, he's up there with Luka. You got to talk about it. But in the absence of LeBron James and the short sample size we do have, Westbrook has held a 32% usage rate. AD is a 34% usage rate. One of those spots, the old school Westbrook days. Give me Westbrook, KD, Westbrook, Paul George. Give me 100 plus from the two, a shorter slate. That's kind of my approach here. Our early ownership projections really don't have them as high as I thought they would be. Maybe that'll change throughout the day. Maybe it's because we're not really talking about a ton of value plays. It's just a little harder to get to those guys, but it's a spot that I'm going to be bullish on. And maybe I'm usually the high guy on Westbrook, but I love me some Russell Westbrook, and I love playing point guards against the Portland Trailblazers. Double zeros, house always win here. Give me Westbrook as borderline core. Definitely a core on FanDuel, almost a core on DK, but the 11K price point, like I got to get to 60. So there's plenty of pushback. Also, you could talk about Carmelo Anthony. I don't know if you know this. It's a revenge game.
The entire Western Conference is a revenge game at this point.
Without LeBron James, Carmelo's minutes are that much safer. And he's been pretty efficient from a Carmelo Anthony standpoint this year, setting some career highs in a shooting percentage from behind the arc. Took 10 threes against OKC. We've seen 5 to 8 as a more average outcome for him. And as long as LeBron's out, you could probably expect close to 30 minutes a game. So I think at 5,800, you can sell me on a decent chunk of Melo here on the Blazer side. Another day, another Damian Lillard on FanDuel debate. He's 8,600. Man, if not today, then never, right? As much as I love point guards against Dame, I love point guards against the Lakers. So Damian Lillard has a real shot to make some people on Twitter put their money where their mouth is, right? After last night, I'll never play Dame. I don't care if he's 8K, blah, blah, blah. Well, we'll see about that. 8,600 on FanDuel tonight in a really plus matchup, high minute expectations out of him. And then CJ McCollum, AK to 7,900. I think you could 2v2 Lillard and McCollum these days to like Chris Paul and Devin Booker and have a real debate for whichever, side of the seesaw you're going to sit on. But I think you can combine those two for 80, 90 to 100 fantasy points in a positive matchup. And I think this matchup's fine. The other supplementary ancillary plays from the Blazers, I don't think I get to Nurkic just because of that price point. There's guys who would stay for minutes for me that I kind of lean on. Norman Powell, I think on DraftKings at 4,800, you can have a real strong look at that. He's put in a couple of decent days of work. Maybe it's come at the expense of the ceilings of a guy like Lillard, but 37 and 40 fantasy points in his last 2 games, Cleveland, Indiana. Then you don't have to go too far to get to a 28. So at 4,800 for today's sake, 25 plus, that dog might hunt. So I'm gonna be okay with Norman Powell exposure on DraftKings. Got to meditate on a little bit more on FanDuel, but this is probably the more stackable game of the night for me, at least in a FanDuel perspective. And I'll be attacking it. The Portland, the spread here is kind of what do you have on the spread? Do you have 5.5?
I have Portland by 3.5.
By 3.5. All right. So when I first looked, I saw 5.5, but now it's I still see 5. I see 3.5 at some books. I see 5 to 5.5 in other books. I don't want to read between the lines here, but Portland on a back-to-back, they haven't looked that great. I guess the Lakers haven't looked great either. But 5.5 would make me worry about Anthony Davis's thumb.
Yeah.
So something to think about throughout the day.
All right, let's do a quick Awesemo Hall of Fame, and then we are going to get on out of here because we have college football live before lock coming up after us. That is going to be Ben Rossa and Matt Gajeski taking us down to the promised land. Checking out here our Awesemo odds or Awesemo Hall of Fame. We've got that Stunna dropping 100K night. there in the FanDuel NBA Jumbo. He got first, third, fourth, and fifth. Nice 130K evening for him. Good work for that. Coming up next, we got Who is John Galt. Says he renewed his Awesemo Platinum sub a few days ago. The first month has paid for itself, only in micro stakes. It looks like he cleared about $200. Nice work there. I approve of that as the last of the big spenders. Next, we got E. Lindy. Oh, that's Eric Lindquist. Had himself a nice little evening there. He was one bucket away from first in the DK 4-point play. Got second for $3,000. Good job by him. You guys get to see him most nights on NBA Live Before Lock. That'll help him out with his honeymoon. He's getting married in a week and a half here. So hat tip to him. We've got Statue Left. Dropped $1,000 top score there, 336 points on DraftKings NBA. Nice work by him. Finishing it up here, we have Zach Ladner. He says, Awesemo and Yahoo Fantasy partnership is perfect. The consistent content the Awesemo guys put out is top tier. Look at that. He had himself a nice day. Got $300 there with the second place finish. Of course, we have all sorts of Yahoo content here. If you go to the link below us in this YouTube, on our YouTube page, click on that Yahoo link. If you have not yet signed up to Yahoo, sign up there, coming through that link, deposit $10. They're going to give you $10, enter a paid contest. As soon as you enter a paid contest, once it locks, they're going to forward us your information, and we're going to get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. That's a $90 value. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts there. So if you want to make sure you get it early or a little more expeditiously, you can email support@awesemo.com. And don't screw around, because we'll zip that right away from you, and we'll put the old block on there if you're screwing around and not going through the Yahoo official process. But we'll get you in there a little early to check that out so you can get in on your content for the day. Wrapping it up, Tommy Nation. Who the hell's Tommy Nation? Oh yeah, that's Jay Kari, $20,000 there in hockey. He's pretty good. Boy, we've got a lot of these. We got $220 winner here. Finally, a top five finish with 3 $1 bullets. Not bad. 72.5. That's the way to go. A couple more here. We've got Friday night shots. We got a $1,500 there from Nick. We've got $500 victory there from Nate. We've got $1,000 there from Aaron. And then wrapping it all up, Valiant Spur rolls out, looks like about 3K for the night. So hat tip for him there. We're going to get on out of here, but you guys want to follow the Awesemo Hall of Fame, you just have that Awesemo avatar there. Heck, you don't have to have the Awesemo avatar there, but if you do and you finish top 3, we'll get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content if you finish top 3 in any contest with at least 5,000 entries or more. Can't be ties. You got to actually be 1, 2, or 3. No ties. But that's a nice little bonus value there. But if you don't have the Awesemo avatar, we like to celebrate wins anyway. Give us a shout out, put us there, tag Awesemo HOF, and we'll see yourself on a show. With that, we're going to get out of here. You can follow Gundacker on Twitter @Gundacker. I'm at EMac DFS, and it is Awesemo_COM. Shout out producer Tyler. Good luck.